Hello everybody. Welcome to our second webinar in the series of Careers Toolkits. We're very, very pleased that you're able to join us today as we meet with our guests today. We've got Sandy Sylvester, the Operations Director for Busy Bees Education and Training, and also Paul Moore, the CPD Manager at Busy Bees Education and Training. Thank you so much for giving up your time today to come along and talk to us. Really important, I think, that we engage with the sector, that we ensure that messages about the sector are clear and that we're reaching the young people who are thinking about a career in early years and childcare. So thank you so much. I want to just tell you a little bit about the Careers Toolkit because you may be joining us for the first time. And the Careers Toolkit it's going to be in lots of different sections, so you're going to find it a very interactive tool. You'll be able to find out about the early years childcare qualifications, including the new T-level in education and childcare. You'll be able to find out about research papers. You'll be able to find out about all the different things and campaigns that are happening in early years, keeping up with trends and so on. You'll also be able to find useful podcasts, webinars and other interesting resources and materials. So we do hope that as this organic careers toolkit develops and grows, you'll be part of that journey with us. As I say, this is the second in a series and we hope to continue with that as time moves on, also making links with children's social care as well. I'm joined today by Stacey Mann, the early years specialist. And together, we're going to talk to you about our aims and intentions, meet with our guest speakers, and hopefully have a nice interactive conversation around the early years sector. Today's webinar, what are the aims and intentions? We want to raise an awareness of the diverse occupational roles in education and childcare, with a particular focus in the early years, to interact with esteemed professionals regarding recruitment and training, and to provide a range of career advice for education and childcare. There are so many different routes, so many different occupational roles, and it's going to be fantastic to listen to the inspirational stories from Sandy and Paul, to be able to really absorb some of that information, learn from those experiences, and really help to inspire you along the way. We hope you enjoy it. Going to hand over to Stacey now.
Hi everyone. So we are joined by Busy Bees, and I just wanted to tell you a little bit about Busy Bees first, and I'm sure that Sandy and Paul will back me up on some of these things. Busy Bees was founded in 1983 and they have 378 nurseries throughout the UK, Ireland and right across the world. The co-founder, Mark Randalls, explains that giving children the best start in life is exactly why Busy Bees began. Busy Bees have fundamental values, and they are care, quality, service and value. With over 250 employees, training and development is a key element of Busy Bees' ethos. As Janet said, we are joined by Sandy Sylvester today, Operations Director of Busy Bees Education and Training, and also Paul Moore, who is the CPD Manager at Busy Bees. I am just going to stop sharing. There we go. Right, Sandy, can you tell us a little bit about how you got into early years in the first place, what your journey's been like, and then maybe a typical day for you?
Right, so I was very fortunate. When I was at school, I always knew I wanted to work with children. And having two teenage daughters myself, that I keep asking them, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? They don't understand. And I'm thinking maybe I was a bit crazy. Right. So even from school age, I wanted to work with early years children. So in 1993, I started my first nursery nursing role in a private day nursery. I worked there for a little while and then met my husband and moved to Rugby, which is where I joined the Leapfrog group. So went into a nursery and became a deputy manager. So I had to step up into a deputy manager's role. And that started my journey with Busy Bees, because obviously Busy Bees bought Leapfrog. So I've been with Busy Bees for 21 years.
Wow.
So we talk about early years, having that progression. So within the company, I've been a deputy manager, a nursery manager, a regional ops manager. Then I worked in the childcare team. So obviously Busy Bees focus is quality and they have a dedicated childcare team. So I was deputy manager of the childcare team for 7 years. Then I reduced my hours and became part-time and moved into training where I worked with Paul with CPD. So I decided to, obviously we used to mentor the staff in the settings with the children. And it was another way of providing that knowledge to the staff through training. So outside of the setting. So I worked, I think my CPD training for about 5 years, then became head of learning and development, then was promoted again and became director of operations for the apprenticeship side as well. So starting off as a nurseryman, so I've been able to step up in different roles, different diverse roles, but still with the heart of making sure that the early years children get the best start in life.
Wow.
So my typical day can be, it's crazy. I could be doing something for CPD. I could be working with apprenticeships, helping recruiting new staff, guiding staff with their new knowledge. Obviously the new EYFS, so working with Paul and Anne, head of learning development, to devise the courses, making sure they're interactive, so it engages early years. So again, we can go back to that best start in life for the children in Busy Bees and across the sector now as well, because we train external people as well.
That's really interesting because I think when you move through the company, you know you will have known what it's like to be in every role, won't you? So you'll be able to have that sort of empathic approach with all of your staff team.
And we always go back to that nurse inside us. That as soon as we go into those nurseries, we're back to where it all starts again. So you don't lose that. And I don't think there are people in early years don't lose that. It doesn't matter how long you've not worked with the children. As soon as you go back in there, you're back to your roots.
You really are. Yeah, I can identify with that definitely. Starting as a nursery nurse myself, but also then when I became a parent, I turned back into a nursery nurse. I was like, let's get the cornflower out, and we'd do.
Yes, I remember those days. I had the easel, I had the pots of paint, I had the little pots so they could take the lids off and paint themselves. And my friends used to come round and go, oh yeah, it's been brilliant. They've enjoyed themselves. And I remember their first birthday, they had little creche and all sorts set up because you go back, don't you, to all the training that you've had.
You really
understanding that children's development and making sure you're providing it. So yeah, my friends used to think I was crazy.
Yeah, my husband was so shocked at how many songs I knew. Back to back.
And you don't forget them even now. You still remember those songs.
They really stick in your mind, don't they?
Yeah,
Thank you for that, Sandy. And how about you, Paul? How did you come into the early years sector, and what's a typical day like for you?
Yeah, so when I got into it, quite different to Sandy because I never planned to work with children. I think I was about 17 or 18 when I knew that I wanted to work with people. So I did an NVQ to get into social care because I wanted to be a social worker. Completed that course. I spoke to my tutor about working outside of Leeds, where this accent is from. And they found out about Camp America for me. So I did summer camp in America, and that's where I think I really confirmed that I wanted to work with children. So I did that for 3 months, came back to England. I worked in a school as a teacher's assistant for a year, got invited back to summer camp. And then when I got back to the UK again, I started working in nurseries for an agency in Leeds called Toy Box. So I worked in a range of nurseries, in and out of school clubs. And then I got offered a position in nursery working with children with, a child that had additional needs, a child that had ataxia, his condition was called Cane. Got a full-time job in nursery, got qualified, worked in nursery for about 10 years, got my levels 2 and 3. And then after a time, I was really passionate, but I just thought that I didn't want to lose that passion by remaining in, direct contact with children in nursery too long. And I was lucky enough to find a job managing a kids club and creche in Greece. So did that for a summer, got a job in the company that I worked for as an operational manager, but rather than the settings being based in the UK, they were based in like Crete, Cyprus, and Greece. So I'd be traveling back and forth, training the staff, supporting staff. After a few years of that, I was in operations manager for a nursery group in London. I was a nanny for 2 years, which is one of the best jobs that I've ever had. The boys were 3 and 4.5 when I first started, and Oscar just last week turned 18 somehow, and Luke is now 16, which is insane to me. But
Yeah.
still see them, but obviously I haven't seen them recently because of COVID. But after about 4 years of working as an operations manager, wanted to get into training and found my role in Busy Bees as a regional trainer. Same as Sandy, in the space of the 5 years that I've been there, I've had 3 promotions, which has been amazing.
Wow.
I was in Australia with Busy Bees doing a research project just over 18 months ago, which I still can't believe's happened. And in my role as a CPD manager now, just because the team's changed so much, a typical day would be, we always start with a meeting, which is a great way to just keep in touch and make sure everyone's all right, find out what's going on. We have condensed training sessions, which we do online. So rather than being full day courses, we now do sessions that last like 3 or 4 hours, which really accommodates people because they can do a course and then go back to work. There's constant projects that come through. We're working on a project to support managers and senior staff in getting show rounds to be as effective as they can be. There's a project I'm working on to train our senior staff about safeguarding that I'm working on at the moment. We're working on a child development course at the moment. So day to day, there's tons of stuff to do. Is the long and
Varied
short.
as well.
Yeah, absolutely, and I love that. Really love that.
Isn't it amazing when you have the opportunity to sit and reflect on what you've achieved so far? You can't believe how much you've done in such a what feels like a really short space of time. But wow, how much have you covered?
Yeah.
And also, I'd really like to take that conversation, maybe not for today, but that was another conversation about the difference in early years across the world, really, because I'm sure it does differ,
Absolutely, yeah. There's
especially
some.
Australia.
Yeah, there's in Australia, I am so tremendously proud to be part of a company that works the way they do. I think we're doing amazing things in the UK, and I think one of the great things about working for this company is they're constantly looking at getting better, which is great. But in Australia, it's a different system, but it's mind-blowingly awesome. I think they're doing brilliant stuff out there. And like you can see, it's a top-down sort of system. You know, the CEOs that spend time with us, they are so driven to be the best they can be. And you can pick that up from the staff and the settings that are there as well.
And you can take those elements and put into your training and just inspire everybody else, can't you? So it's really great, that is. Thank you for that.
Wow. Well, my questions are not going to be giving you the opportunity to be as inspirational as that, but I'm just blown away by what you've done. I mean, anybody listening to this webinar now will be probably thinking, how come I've not achieved all of that? I work in early years. But what it does do is actually just highlight those opportunities and the variety of job roles. And, you know, as Stacey said, so the idea of the progression, the different roles, the ambition, everything, you know, that you've both achieved is fantastic. And it's, yeah, wonderful that you've actually achieved all of that with the best outcomes for children, for babies and young children and families at the heart of what you do. So thank you for sharing that. I've just got a couple of questions. And Sandy, I'll come to you first, if I may. So in terms of the training and the things that you offer, obviously professional development, continuous professional development and so on is at the heart of all that and drives what that side of the organisation is doing in terms of education and training. Do you think that professional development is important in terms of creating, maintaining and growing a quality early years workforce.
Yeah, definitely. For my experience, I did my BTEC at college in 91 to 93, but then I went and did my BA honours at the age of, well, it was while I was working in the childcare team. So I was working full time and did my BA. I've had a lot of experience in early years, even at that point, but I still, to do that qualification gave me that understanding, that knowledge to deepen my understanding, to again, like you say, about reflecting, sitting back, looking at what you're doing. Is it working? Can we tweak it? And obviously with early years, those little people, they're always developing. There's new different technologies that they're using. So you can never stand still. It's sort of a sector that if you stood still.
Is it green with you, Sandy?
Yeah, we like it. No, you're right. I think if you stand still, it's impossible, isn't it? It's really difficult. In fact, you can't stand still because you've missed something and we've missed opportunities. And if anybody, talks about agility, flexibility, all of those things, it's early years people who can do that, isn't it? And be able to. I mean, we talk about reflection in action and thinking on your feet and things like that. You have to think on your feet multiple times for every child that's in front of you, because there's something that you could do to actually support each child. So you're continuously thinking, and the way that the world is changing, the opportunities that we have, and keeping up to date with the changes in the foundation stage and things like that. You're right. You can't stand still. Absolutely.
Like with COVID and stuff, we've had to do this. They've had to adapt. We've obviously gone into the bubbles. They're quick. We are a very reactive and proactive sector, I believe. That if we're given something, we just go. I think because we're so used to that in the time of planning, that kind of thing, the play, that we're so used to being reactive and spontaneous that nothing seems to phase. I don't think the early years sector.
No.
Yeah.
But with their CPD knowledge and that, like we've looked at, haven't we, children's mental health, thinking that it's not going to affect the early years, but actually it is. And we've got courses and we've developed things to help promote and support these little people. If we stood still, those things would have been missed and the staff wouldn't have been as skilled as we needed them to be.
And I think to tag on to that, I know when I'm delivering training, first and foremost, my aim is to just remind people why they're in early years, because I think all too often, we forget the pressures that are on early years staff. If you think about, safeguarding awareness, if you think about maintaining ratios, ensuring children's safety, I mean, those are huge expectations. And I think sometimes staff, not because they're bad people, but just because of the intensity of the system, can get caught in like a conveyor belt sort of approach. And for me, I think the importance of CPD is just to remind staff that they are working with these little people at the most important time of their life, and what we need to aim to do goes back to, MAG's ethos, which is to provide these little people the best start that we can.
Yeah, no, absolutely fantastic. And I think it's so important, isn't it, that you say we can't stand still, not just literally when we're looking and caring and providing for babies and young children, but also ourselves, because Paul, yourself, you talked about the work that you've done and the research and the opportunities that you were able to to gain from being in Australia, for example. And the wealth of benefit that will be brought across in terms of thinking about something in a different way. And sometimes you need to see a different perspective before you can feel something, before something can then be changed. So that's fantastic. And I think having that commitment to education and training, having that commitment to professional development really will help, won't it, to keep that quality workforce, because we talk about CPD all the time, and any sort of evidence that we get in terms of call for evidence from the sector, there's always that need for CPD. There's always that that love and that drive, that self-motivation to learn more, to do more for the children, and to be able to be the best you possibly can be in terms of early years training. And we forget that, and we forget to actually think, you know, early years, we know they work very, very hard. Early years staff work incredibly hard. It's as challenging and demanding, probably in equal measures, but it's something you do with from the heart, isn't it? It's something you want to do and you're driven to do. But the fact, I don't think there's anybody else who probably does as much voluntary CPD as the early years sector to be able to make sure, you know, that they are up to date and they're doing the best they possibly can. So that's fantastic. And, you know, it doesn't have to be, I know, Sandy, you talked about the BA and things, and that's fantastic. And yes, having those skills, having that knowledge, having that understanding is fantastic. But people watching the webinar, this is about, you know, it includes those short courses. It includes that. You talked about the mental health awareness, things like that, ideas around neuroscience, adverse childhood experiences, all of those things in the mix. Really, really important to be able to, you know, to champion for early years, really, and to work closely with families as well. So that's fantastic. Thank you. I've just got one more question. And my next question, really, you talked about it a little bit because you mentioned, I think it was you, Paul, you mentioned the pandemic and how, you know, how that's impacting some of the things and how you can't visit like you used to and things like that. Thinking about recruitment, so Sandy, you talked about recruitment when you were introducing your typical day might well involve recruiting staff. Obviously, over the past year, it's been difficult. Before that, it was difficult, and we talk about a sector in crisis. What you know, how has that impacted you? If you're happy to talk about things like that, and it can be general with the sector. You know, how do you think it's impacted the sector?
I think it's hard for the sector. I think the pandemic has helped in the fact that it's brought early years to the forefront as a key worker group, and actually, because like Paul said earlier on, it is the most important part of the time of those children's lives. They're learning so many skills, their brains are developing, that kind of thing. And the pandemic has done early years, like it's brought them to the forefront. I know when a long time ago when I was a nursery manager, it was really easy to recruit an early years person, a qualified member of staff. They were banging at the door to come in and I want to come and work for you. But I think nowadays it is quite hard. It is challenging out there for the settings to recruit those staff, and again it's engaging them in the apprenticeship, in the T levels, those opportunities, speaking to them that it is a really good career and there are those progression opportunities for those people that don't want to stand still, that do want to develop. There are a lot of opportunities out there that people can start off at one, like I say myself, start off as a nursery nurse, which is a really important job, and then later on I've moved to this position, which again is quite important. So it's being able to communicate that out to the early years sector to see, one, it is a really vital road for these little people. There are those opportunities to do the education and do their apprenticeship, like I said, and that there is that career progression.
No, fantastic. Thank you. Paul, would you like to add anything to the conversation around recruitment?
Yeah, I think recruitment's been tough for 8 years, like Sandy said. And I think, you know, for me, one of the factors that might be faced in that is the fact that, you know, it seems like a really tough job and it is a challenging job. But I think, you know, the reason that I've stayed in this industry so long is because I want to make a difference with children. You know, I think if we have people that are motivated, that come in it for the right reasons, you know, then there are a breadth of opportunities that could be there. And the thing that I discuss quite a bit in training is, you know, everybody's path is their own. So some people do want to work their way up from, you know, an apprentice to, you know, a room leader or a nursery manager. You know, for me, my path was, you know, different to that. You know, I've had opportunities to see different parts of the world, you know, through jobs that I've had. And I think, you know, one of the things I'd really impress upon anyone who was considering, working with children is, it can be nursery, absolutely, which is amazing. I loved my time in nursery, but I did nannying, which I really loved. I went on to regional management, which I've loved, and I'm now a trainer, which, is, I really do think, one of the things that I was put on the planet to do. I really love doing that too. So there are a range of different opportunities that can be led from early years, but I do think it needs to be promoted a tiny bit more, particularly to try and attract the attention of a more diverse, group of people, particularly men in early years, let's say.
And what a
Excellent.
lovely...
That leads us nicely on, Stacey, doesn't it? Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you both.
It absolutely does. That wasn't rehearsed or anything. It was just a lovely, seamless link to the next topic we're going to cover, which is the gender imbalance, really, in early years. And you started your inspiring journey, Paul, by saying you didn't plan to come into the sector. No. Was there a reason that you didn't plan to come into the sector? Was there a reason that early years and childcare was not on your radar?
It's not a man's job, generally, is it? I think, if we are tremendously honest, we have still got, issues with gender in this country. You can talk about, the pay gap between males and females. You can talk about, toxic masculinity, which exists in a range of communities, which prevents a range of males from doing a range of different things. I have been tremendously lucky in that I've been supported by my family and friends to, follow this pathway. They've shared, pride and happiness with me and my achievements, which has been good. But I can imagine that for some, young men, if they were to say, I'm going to work with children, that would not be accepted so much. They might be chastised a tiny bit for it. And there's actually a webinar I've just developed talking about supporting boys in early years. And we talk about, toxic masculinity. And I feel like I'm going really off topic. I do apologize.
No, you're absolutely not. I think it's all relevant. And I do think all of those things are really, really important, and sort of brings us to, what are we going to do about it? We know these problems are there. What are our solutions? What are the potential things that we can do to encourage men to come into the early years and childcare sector, and I suppose exactly what you just said, be supported by everyone around them. I think it's a really important message that we need to put out there to all of the aspiring students, really.
Yeah, I think there needs to be case studies. I think there needs to be representation, of people that have said, I'm in this industry, this is what my journey was like, this is what, the support has been like, these have been the challenges, this is where I've got support. I think, a lack of representation, is going to be something that restricts, the development or enhancement of anything. I think in order for people to want to achieve something, they're going to need to see people that look like, sound like, and have the same interests as them in order to consider it. Because I think being the first in doing something is a tremendous pressure, and it can be pretty intimidating for many.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that needs to filter down into the images that we have on marketing and the images that we have in textbooks and, and all of those things. Do you agree with that, Sandy? Do you think there's other things that we could be doing?
Yeah, and it's just, like you say, listening to Paul's story, educating the public, and also the parents as well that are using early years sector or the earliest profession, that there are males, and the males that I've worked with within, they make such a big impact on those children, and the children are like, especially the boy, come on, let's go and do this together, that kind of thing. And it's like, I know, and over the time, obviously when I first qualified, there was no males in early years, so I have seen an increase, not to the amount that we want, but I have seen an increase. But it was like, who are you? When a male person walks into the door, that into the rooms and stuff, the children, so they want it. They want to see those male figures in their working with along representing them in their little rooms and stuff. So it's just that education, like you say, looking at the marketing, trying to pick it and not make it obvious either that's what you want to do. It's got to be that subliminal message that is out there without people realising, because it is natural. It is natural to want to work with children, whether you're male or female.
Yeah, that's right. We don't want it to become tokenistic, do we? Where we
No.
just include a male and a female on everything, but just try to put it out there and embed it in everything that we do, because we do on a daily basis with the children. We wouldn't discriminate against men when we're working with the children, would we? So why would we within our recruitment process or within encouraging men into the sector? So it brings me really nicely onto the last bit, which is your top 3 tips really for aspiring students, which I think you've said so many already that I think everybody's going to want to, we'll have an influx of registrations, I'm sure.
Me first.
Yeah, you go for it.
If anyone was thinking about it, I think there are tons of options to do things like part-time opportunities like I did. So I worked for an agency, which gave me a bit of a taste, for things like this. There are tons of CPD courses, webinars, we've got a ton that are going like for free at the moment that can give people like a window into what would be expected of them in there. And my final tip, and I think would be the most important one, just do it. Kids are amazing. I think, when I first started, I worked with out of school club children, and these are kids that have got character, they've got interest, you can have conversations. And when I started there, I thought, I'd never work with babies, never work with toddlers, they're not interesting, they don't do stuff. And then fast forward to me being forced to work in there by one of my managers. Babies are amazing. There's so much that they pick up on from moment to moment each day. Toddlers, my favorite age range to work with now. The amount of learning and sass that they will share with you on a moment to moment. I just think, there's obviously been really challenging days and times that I've had working with children, but for the most part, I just genuinely feel delighted that I've worked in this industry. It's a phenomenal one to be part of.
Fabulous. Thank you, Paul.
Do you want some from me?
Yeah, go on, Sandy.
I'd say like everything that Paul just said and more. And it's just if you want to make a difference, and I know that might sound corny, but they are our next generation. And if you want to get up, go to work and know that you've made a difference to a lot of people, the early years is the place to be. It's not going to be the same every day. Like you say, Paul, that you can walk in, they could be having a complete meltdown. And the fact that they can look at you and they've seen you, that smiley face will make such a difference to those little people. And like you go in, not one day is the same. So you won't go in, put your computer on, start doing your work kind of thing. You'll go in and you don't know what's going to happen. But at the end of the day, you might be shattered, but actually you should be motivated that you've made such a difference.
Really, that's fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing your contributions. They're just invaluable to the sector, but I think so inspiring as well. I think you can feel the passion and enthusiasm when a group of early years professionals come together, and that's something you can't teach. That's something you can't do on a course, is it? So thank you. That was really great.
No worries.
Thank you, Stacey. I think the energy and some of the things that you were talking about, the difference that you make in people's lives every single day, is absolutely amazing. It gives me goosebumps, just listening to some of the stories and some of the things that you've done and that you continue to do. So thank you for sharing those stories, as Stacey has said. And I know that, for people listening to the webinar, from staff to students, they're going to get something from this in terms of inspiration, in terms of, oh, didn't think about that, didn't think I'd be able to do that, and it just raises that hope, and we want to reach as many people as we can. And Sandy, I think you said something about it's natural to want to work with young children. Yeah, it absolutely can be. And I think, it's natural to want to do it. Just go for it. We're liking all of these slogans, so I can see some of these. That's really, really good. I think I just want to say, bring the webinar to a close now, and just say thank you again And thank you to everyone who's been listening to the webinar today. Thank you so much for your time. And please do look out for other webinars. We are doing a series of webinars for the Careers Toolkit. As I say, there'll be other opportunities to meet with other guest speakers and learn a little bit more about the diverse work and the different occupational roles within the sector. Coming up soon, Stacey and I will be able to take you through the page, the Careers Toolkit page on our qualifications webpage and so on, and we'll take you through the different sections and spend some time looking at what's behind each of the different sections and how they might be able to help in different areas such as recruitment and so on. Okay, so for now we'll say goodbye. Thank you so much for listening. Thanks everyone.
Bye.